Welcome to Rising Voices. This is a podcast series that celebrates the quiet power, deep wisdom, and soul filled resilience that we have as sensitive women. I'm your host, Jess, the creator of Sensitive Women Rising. In each episode, I'll be sitting down with a sensitive woman who has chosen to rise, not by being loud or forceful, but by becoming more of who she truly is. These conversations are real, tender, healing, and so brave. And they're here to remind you that your voice matters. Your sensitivity is sacred, and you're not alone. So grab a cup of something yummy, snuggle under your favorite blanket, and join us as we share our hearts together. Hi, love. Welcome to the very first episode of Rising Voices. This podcast has been on my heart for so long, and I'm so excited to be sharing it with you now. It feels surreal and really, really sacred to finally be sitting down to record this. Before I start inviting some of the incredible women that I'm going to be interviewing in this series, I decided that I wanted to do a solo episode, just me and you. I wanted to share a little bit of my own story. What led me to create this space, the moment I chose to rise, and why I believe these conversations are so needed for women like us. I know what it feels like to feel like you're too much and still somehow not enough. I know what it's like to overthink everything that you say, to feel like you're carrying the weight of everyone else's emotions all the time, to keep quiet, even when your heart is screaming. And I also know what it's like to finally stop shrinking. The idea for Rising Voices came when I was first invited to be a guest on someone else's podcast. That moment meant so much to me. I remember thinking, wow, someone sees me. They care about my story. They believe that my voice matters. Even though I had done a lot of work to believe these things about myself, that invitation just really hit something deeper. It was like, finally, someone outside of my closest circle saw the value in what I carried. And it felt so healing. That experience made me realize that I wanted to give that feeling to other women. I wanted to create a space where sensitive women are honored for the very things that they once were told were too much, where we can witness each other's healing and remember that we're not the only ones trying to rise in a world that taught us to stay small. Because knowing that you're not alone can change everything. So, here's a little bit about my story. For many years, I was in a toxic religious group that did not value my voice, especially as a woman. I had learned to just accept what I was told. It was not safe to ask questions. I believed that if I challenged anything, something bad would happen. So I spent so much of my life overwhelmed with the what ifs. What if I disappoint God? What if I get it wrong? What if they think I'm difficult or selfish? All of these thoughts spiraled in my head anytime I felt something in my body that felt so uncomfortable. That fear kept me stuck for such a long time. But things started to shift when I became a mother. When I looked at my daughters and I saw how precious they are, I knew in my soul that I never wanted them to feel the way I had felt. I never wanted them to believe that they had to earn their worth. I never wanted anyone to dictate their purpose for them, not even me. And I definitely didn't want fear to make their decisions for them. So I realized if I wanted my daughters to rise, I had to go first. I had to stop performing for approval. I had to stop finding my value in being the good girl and always being accepted. I had to start listening to my own voice and trusting it. The old me thought that it was her job to keep everyone else comfortable. The new me knows that it's not my responsibility anymore. And if you're still in that space, if you're still afraid to take that first step, I want to gently say that the fear you're stuck in might feel safer, but it's actually more uncomfortable in the long run. You see, the choice to rise can be really scary at first, but just like any new decision, once you strengthen that muscle, once you start to practice trying a different way, it does become easier. And ultimately, you can step into a life that feels good. Listen, rising doesn't just happen once. Recently, I had a moment where I had to fire someone who was helping me in my business. They were taking advantage of my kindness. They were crossing boundaries and subtly making me feel like my voice didn't matter. At first, I doubted myself. Am I being too difficult? Maybe I'm too sensitive, or I'm just asking too much. It felt so hard to say, this just isn't working. But it needed to be said. And when I finally did say it, I felt this deep peace return to my body. That moment reminded me of something I now return to often. It's a question that I use in coaching too. If someone I love was going through this situation, what would I tell her? Every time I ask myself that, the answer is clear. I would never tell her to stay small. I would never tell her to overextend herself to be liked. I would tell her that she's allowed to trust herself. And so are you. Since I started making more of my story public, I've received hundreds of messages from women saying things like, I feel like I've been searching my whole life for this. You said what I've never been able to say out loud. I thought I was the only one who felt this way. One woman wrote to me and said, I found it almost impossible to explain what being sensitive felt like, so I kept it hidden, even from my family. But your words helped me realize that there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just wired a little differently. And now I'm grateful for that. See, every time I read these messages, I just sit with them and think, this is why I'm here. This is why I speak up. And this is why I keep going, even when it's hard. And ultimately, this is why I created Rising Voices. To me, rising means discovering your purpose and stepping into it unapologetically. It means letting go of the belief that you have to wait for permission from someone. It means honoring your emotions, trusting your voice, and deciding that your needs matter too. The stories that were too much or that were not enough are crafted out of fear. And when we begin to meet those fears with truth and love, everything starts to shift. The shame dissipates and clarity comes. This is how we rise. Before we close, I want to speak directly to you, the woman who has doubted herself, who has dimmed her light to keep the peace, who has kept quiet because she didn't want to be misunderstood. I want you to know this. There is nothing wrong with the way that you feel. Your sensitivity is not a weakness. It's actually the very thing that connects you to truth, to depth, to love, and to healing. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to want more. You're allowed to change your mind and begin again as many times as you need. You were never too much, and you were never not enough. You are deeply needed, just as you are. Finally, I want to invite you to be a part of this podcast in a really special way. If you've had a rising moment, no matter how small it is, whether it was setting a boundary, trusting your gut, or simply choosing rest instead of pushing through, I would love to hear your story. You can DM me at Sensitive Women Rising or send it through the form linked in the show notes. And with your permission, I may share a few of these rising moments in future episodes. Because together we rise, and your voice is a part of that. Thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for letting me share this piece of my story. Next week, I'll be joined by a powerful woman whose story I know will move you deeply. I can't wait to introduce you to her.